The Architecture of Loneliness. Shadow Logic. Welcome to Shadow Logic. Tonight, we're exploring something most people try to escape, but rarely try to understand. Loneliness, not as weakness, not as failure, but as design. Why does being left out hurt physically? And what if that pain is not a flaw, but a signal? Let's begin. The Architecture of Loneliness. There is a particular silence that arrives when you realize you were not invited. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a subtle shift in the air, like walking into a room where the conversation lowers half a tone. We often treat loneliness as an emotional weakness, as if it reveals something fragile about us. But what if loneliness is not weakness at all? What if it is design? As someone trained in psychology, I've come to see loneliness not as a malfunction of the mind, but as architecture, something deliberately constructed into the human nervous system. And tonight, I want to explore a question that seems simple, but is profoundly revealing. Why does being left out hurt physically? Why can a message ignored feel like a blow to the chest? To answer that, we have to travel back to a time before cities, before screens, to the tribal brain. For most of human history, survival depended entirely on belonging. Early humans did not live as isolated individuals. They lived in small tribes, tight social units that provided food, protection, shared knowledge, and warmth. The wilderness beyond the group was not poetic solitude. It was exposure, predators, starvation, death. To be excluded from the tribe was not socially uncomfortable. It was fatal. Evolution, indifferent but efficient, shaped our brains accordingly. If social separation could threaten survival, then the brain needed a powerful alarm system to prevent it. So it did something remarkable. It wired social rejection into the same neural circuitry that processes physical pain. Modern neuroimaging studies show that when we experience social exclusion, areas such as the anterior cingulate cortex become active, the same regions involved when we experience bodily injury. The brain does not treat rejection as metaphorical pain. It treats it as real. When your chest tightens after being ignored, when your stomach drops after realizing you were left out, your nervous system is not being dramatic. It is being ancient. It still believes we are sitting around a fire in a dark forest. Imagine that fire. The tribe gathers close. There is warmth, shared laughter, collective vigilance. Now imagine standing just outside the circle of light. You can see them. You can hear them. But you are not part of them. The darkness beyond you feels heavier. That sensation, that ache, is the same one that lives in us today. Loneliness is not a modern invention. It is evolutionary memory. And here is where it becomes even more interesting. Physical pain has a clear function. If you touch a flame, pain forces you to withdraw your hand. Without pain, you would damage yourself without noticing. Social pain operates in a similar way. When we feel isolated, the brain increases vigilance. It scans for social cues. It heightens sensitivity to tone, facial expression, delay. From a survival perspective, this makes sense. If belonging determines safety, then losing it must trigger immediate attention. But in the modern world, this system can misfire, because our environment has changed faster than our biology. Today, we live in a world of hyperconnectivity. We carry social networks in our pockets. We see images of gatherings we were not part of. We watch lives unfold in real time. On the surface, we are more connected than any generation before us. And yet, loneliness persists, sometimes even intensifies. Why? Because digital proximity is not the same as belonging. Our tribal brain evolved for eye contact, shared physical space, synchronized laughter. It evolved for the subtle regulation that happens when two nervous systems feel safe together. A like activates reward circuitry. A notification releases a small pulse of dopamine, but these signals are brief. They simulate inclusion without guaranteeing safety. Being left on scene can trigger the same ancient alarm as standing outside the firelight. Being excluded from a group chat can feel like exile. The brain does not fully distinguish between digital and physical social cues. It interprets patterns. inclusion or exclusion, visibility or invisibility. Hyperconnection gives us visibility. Belonging gives us security. And they are not the same. I often think of loneliness like a lighthouse during a storm. The lighthouse is visible. It signals constantly. Its light reaches far into the darkness. But signaling is not shelter. You can be seen and still feel alone. You can have hundreds of digital connections and still lack the deep nervous system calm that comes from sitting across from someone who truly understands you. This is not a failure of character. It is a mismatch between ancient wiring and modern architecture. The tribal brain still asks simple questions. Am I included? Am I valued? Would someone notice if I disappeared? When those questions feel uncertain, the pain system activates. Not to shame us, but to guide us. And this is the reframing that matters. Loneliness is not an identity. It is a signal. We do not criticize ourselves for feeling hunger. We do not interpret thirst as a flaw. We recognize these sensations as indicators of need. Loneliness functions in the same way. It points toward connection, not toward distraction, not toward endless scrolling, but toward something slower and more embodied. A conversation without performance. A friendship where silence feels safe. A shared moment where the nervous system softens. The architecture of loneliness is protective. It exists because belonging has always meant survival. The pain is not there to harm you. It is there to move you, to remind you that you are designed for interdependence, that somewhere deep in your neural circuitry is the imprint of ancient fires, shared stories, collective breath under open skies. When loneliness arises, it is not evidence that you are broken. It is evidence that you are human. And perhaps tonight, if you feel that quiet ache, you can hold it differently. Not as proof that you are unwanted, but as proof that your brain still carries a blueprint shaped by thousands of years of survival. A blueprint that insists you matter within a group, that you are meant to belong. If reflections like this bring you clarity or comfort, I invite you to remain part of this space. Subscribe, not for noise, but for thoughtful exploration. A quiet community examining the architecture of the mind together. Because even here, across distance and screens, we are participating in something deeply human, the search for connection, and the understanding that the ache itself is evidence that we were never meant to face the dark alone.